Hi there, welcome back to Corrie Papercrafts. It's Karen here, independent Stampin' Up demonstrator in central Scotland. Today I want to show you how I made this little box here. It's not really a new idea, but it's made to specifically measure a sweetie, so although you may have seen this idea somewhere else, I've made the box with my own measurements to fit a sweetie or a chocolate, and it's one of these here. It's a Galaxy Truffle, and it's just by chance that it actually matches. That wasn't intended in any way. It's made using the Brights DSP or 6x6 DSP pack, and the Brights is my favourite colour family with Stampin' Up, so I've not really used it very much recently, and I thought I would. So this is Bermuda Bay, and this is the mini striped ribbon in Bermuda Bay as well. The glitter enamel dots are actually, this shade is Coastal Cabana, but I think it matches fairly well. So I did the stamping using the Bermuda Bay ink. Here's the mini striped ribbon here. It comes on a 9 metre roll, or 9.1 I think it is. It's very pretty. I like that, and it's easy to work with. And the Brights papers are, as I say, 6x6. The only 6x6 papers we do, apart from the Best Dressed suite, are our In Colours and our colour families, and each pack has 4 sheets of each colour, but you actually get 4 different designs, as it were. I'll just show you here on the Poppy Parade paper. So you have, it's all double-sided as usual. You have this design in each colour. You have this design on this side and lovely script on that side. So you get 2 sheets of those in each colour, and then 2 sheets of this design as well, and on the back you've got a gingham pattern. Some of you might remember the Gingham Gala papers that we had last year, and they were all obviously gingham designs, and I really like the gingham patterns. But for today's project I've actually used, oh, I can't get this back in right, there we go. I've actually used this design here, which I think is quite pretty. So I'm going to make it again, but I'm going to use another Brights colour, just to let you see something slightly different. So what you're going to need is a sheet of cardstock, and this is Gorgeous Grape, and that measures 8 1/4 by 5, and you would get 2 out of a sheet of A4 cardstock. You'll need 2 pieces of DSP which measure 1 7/8 by 1 7/8, and another piece which measures 1 7/8 by 7/8, and that's the little piece that goes on the flap on the lid that comes forward here. So again, if you've got a directional pattern, you need to decide which way round you want your pattern to go, and make sure that all your pieces of paper match. I could use the gingham side, but I want to use this pattern side here because I want it very much more tone on tone, so that it is almost the same colour as the cardstock, but the pattern is just a subtle bit that's added against that colour background. So you're going to need to do a little bit of scoring, but it's really quite easy. So we're going to score at, on the long side, at 2 inches, 4, 6 and 8, and then that leaves you that 1/4 inch bit on the end to join your box together, and then turn it to the short side and score at 2 and 4. Now I turned that clockwise, so if you want to follow the video exactly, then I would suggest that you turn your cardstock clockwise as well, because I'm going to give you just a little pointer when we come to cutting. So fold and burnish all your score lines. and that last little 1/4 inch one. You could make it 8.5 inches if you've got wider cardstock, or if you've got a scrap of cardstock that you're going to use. But if you want to use a piece of international A4, which is what we use in the UK, then you'll get 2 out of a sheet if you cut it on the 8.25 length. And as you can see, I'm still covered in ink from when I made the Bermuda Bay one. So this is what you're left with once you've done all your scoring and burnishing. And we're going to do some cutting. So this really thin rectangle at the end here, we want to remove that and miter in just a little bit. My scissors are really sticky. And then we're going to remove this little part here, but we're going to remove more of this part on the top, but we'll just remove this part for now so that you can see that that's what you're left with to join your box together. So the narrow, the 1 inch strip is across the top here, and the wider 2 inch parts are for the bottom of your box here. So we need to do a little bit more cutting. So we're going to keep this part here on the 1 inch back part at the top, and it's on the opposite side to this narrow flap for joining the box together. But the rest of this we're going to get rid of completely. So I'm going to cut down here, and I'm going to remove the score line as I cut, because I want a flush edge on this part, which is the part we're keeping, and I want the rest of that to go. So I'm going to get brave with my big scissors again, and we're just going to cut the rest of this 1 inch part off completely. So you're just removing all 3 of those remaining squares. There we go. Okay, so you're left with this once you're finished. Alright, so before we do anything else, we want to cut up straight just either side of that score mark on each of the rest of these squares, and hopefully we'll be able just to pull that off. Same here, and it saves any overlapping. It just gives you a slightly neater finish. You can cut straight up the score lines if you want, and then just cut off anything that's overhanging once your box is finished, but cutting it that way means that you're taking away that score line and you're making sure that there's nothing overhanging once you're finished. Come on. Probably could have done that a little bit straighter, so let me just fix that bit. That wasn't very good at all, so I'm just going to cut a slightly wider part off like that. There we go, that's better. Okay, any furry bits that you've got that are left, you can just snip them off. Okay, I think you might be left with some little bits just because you've taken that score line off, but you'll get those at the end anyway. So that's what you're left with once you've done all your cutting. Okay, so all we need to do is round the corners on this little flap here, and I'm going to use my trio punch to do that. So I'm just going to pop that in and do that side. Okay, and while I'm at it, I'm actually going to cut the bottom corners, or round the bottom corners of the piece. Well, that didn't work very well. Don't think I pushed that in far enough, so let's try that again. Will that work this time? Yep. Just for the little flap that's going to go onto my lid. So that's all my prep done. So I want to add a piece of tape along this little flap here, and it just fits our tearing tape, but you'll have a tiny little bit overhanging here, which will just fold back on itself once we're ready to put it together. And when your box is put together, this flap's going to come round like this. So this is going to be my front flap. And actually I've just remembered one more little bit of scoring that we need to do after we had done all that cutting. So I'm just going to add a couple of pieces of tape on here to help to stop that gaping. And either side, just a very small piece of tape on either side of what will be our little flaps on the side, and I'm going to trim those a little bit, I think, as well, just to remove some of the bulk underneath. So a little piece of tape either side, here and here, and I can see a little bit there that I didn't exactly trim straight either, so I'll finish that bit off just here. There we are, that's a bit better. And I'm just going to take about slightly more than 1/4 of an inch off, just to make sure they don't stick out either. And before I do anything else, I'm going to put my pieces of designer series paper on, but also show you another little bit of scoring that we want to do just to get these sides to fold in. So each square is 2 inches wide, it's 2 inches square actually, and you can either use your grid paper. I made this box with my workshop ladies on Wednesday night, and we used the grid paper to mark, and I might just as well show you this. Each of these little squares on your grid paper is 1/4 of an inch. So if I count 1, 2, 3, 4 squares along, I want to make a little mark there because that's an inch. And the same, nearly Karen, nearly did it on the wrong part. Same again here, count 1, 2, 3, 4 squares along and just make a little mark there. And then I want to score from this corner to this mark to make a diagonal line, and the same on the other side. But the trick is to put whatever you're using to score, be it your scoring tool or the ball on your scoring tool from your scoreboard, and you just want to make sure that you put your ruler to slightly to the left of that mark there, so that you actually get your score line in the right place. So ball tool or whatever you're using on there, and then just slightly to the left of that tick mark to make sure that your scores go in the right place. And the same again here. Score line there and a score line there. And then I'm going to bend those a little bit, but I'm going to stick my pieces of DSP on first before I do any more. So I'm just going to use some liquid glue to do that. I think I just about need a new bottle. And I'm just getting as close as I can to the corners. I'm not sure if I just went out of shot there. There's not very much coming out of that at all. And I wanted my pattern going side to side, so I'm putting it on that way. Just give that a press down. Add some glue to this piece. There we are. Whoops. Again, that's me covered in glue. What a surprise. So this part here is actually the back panel, and this is going to be the front panel. And I'm just going to flatten that edge down. It's just raised a little bit from when I cut it with my trimmer, that's all. And just press on those, and then the last bit for some glue is the little bit that's going to go on the flap. Oops, that'll come squishing out if I don't sort that. There we go. And just add that here. Just make sure that it's straight and they've got an even border all the way around on each side and top and bottom. I'm quite happy with that. So again, just giving it a little press with my paper folder, and that helps to disperse the glue a little bit as well. So now I'm ready to stick it together. So I'm going to remove the backing from this piece of tape here, and I'm going to fold over these little edges here, and then this bit that overlapped, I'm just going to fold that back on itself so that it's not sticking out. Fold that side over and fold this side over and stick them together. And then I'm going to take the backing off my two side flaps that I trimmed earlier. Okay, and then I'm going to bring in my, what is the flap from the back, and then the two side flaps, and just make sure I keep that square, and then take the backing off tape on the front flap and join it together like so. And what I didn't do was I didn't actually fold those to break the fibres a little bit more, but because we've scored it, it's actually going to go in at the sides anyway, apart from that little corner which could have done with being folded a little bit, but there we are, and that's how a box goes together. So all I did was I popped my sweetie in. Now it's a slightly tight fit, but it does go, and then I just added a glue dot to the middle of this flap here. Make sure I tuck the wrapper in, bring that over, make sure it's straight, and stick it down with the mini glue dot. And then I'm using the mini striped ribbon, the same as the Bermuda Bay one, but in Gorgeous Grape, and I've just got this end stuck down with a mini glue dot because it's getting towards the end of the roll, so it's hard to get into there to catch the end. So I'll just take that off. Will I have enough? I've got another roll. I think I'm maybe going to have to use the other roll after all that. So just cut off the bit that's got the mini glue dot on it, and just cut off enough to tie a bow. Bring that round to the front. Thought I had a mini glue dot stuck to my thumb there, but I think it's glue as opposed to a mini glue dot. And we're just going to tie a bow just above where you can see the edge of this little lid. Now normally I would press this up against my tummy to tie the bow and get it to stay still until I had done it, but I can't do that today, so let's have another go because that didn't work too well. Try again. Get that little loop to come through. There we are. Oh, I tell you, the things that I'm making today are the things that I've ended up with really short bits of ribbon. So this is going to have slightly shorter tails, but that's okay. So just give that a little trim at an angle there, and that a little trim at an angle there. And then just a little bit of stamping, so you'll need a scrap of Whisper White or thick Whisper White cardstock, and I'm going to use my Gorgeous Grape ink, and I've already mounted the Hey Friend stamp, which was from the Itty Bitty Greetings stamp set. It's a 2 stamp, it's a double set, set 1 and set 2. It's got greetings for just about everything, and I'm using this little Hey Friend here. So I'm just going to stamp that, just make sure it's inked up, and stamp that not too close to an edge, and I'll show you why just now. I'll pop it about there. Would have helped if I'd stamped it straight, but in keeping with everything else that's been squinted today, I'm not too worried. So I'm actually going to use, oh my goodness, what is this called, this punch? It's gone, bear with me and I'll tell you just in a second what punch this is, because I've completely forgotten. The tailored tag punch. Oh my goodness, that just went right out of my head there. And I'm just, these corners here, I'm just trying to line up either side of my Hey Friend, and I'm just trying to make sure that they're kind of in the middle of that sentiment before I actually cut it out, and I think that's probably about right. I'm not sure, no, I don't know why that didn't cut out completely. Right, let's just tear that, and no, I'm not going to fix it. I'm not going to fix it. I'm not sure. I think I pressed part of the lock. So let's stamp that again, because that didn't really work. Try and get this bit straighter. Nope. I am not having a straight day today at all. Everything's squint. Right, let's try that again. It's actually stamped a little bit better, I think, than the last one as well, so that was a happy accident in the end. So again, I'm just trying to line up these corner parts in the middle of the sentiment. That's better. And punch that out. And then I used my scissors to cut straight along underneath. Let's just straighten that up a little bit, because I don't think that's completely straight, and then across the top. And I did this because the everyday or the classic label punch wouldn't quite fit that sentiment. I think that's okay. It's probably could be a little bit straighter, but I'm not too worried. And I think for this one I'm going to stamp a little bit round the edges, or sponge a little bit round the edges, because I'm not sure if that's just a little bit too white on there. So let's have a go and see. So this is just one of our sponges. They come in sets of 3 like this, the stamping sponges, and you can cut them up to whichever size you want. So I'm just going to very lightly sponge round the edges to add a little bit of colour. You don't need a lot at all, and it just takes that stark white off. We'll see what it looks like once we've got that on. And then using my glitter enamel dots, I'm going to use the middle size, just because I've only got one of the smallest size, which I didn't notice before I decided to use a different colour, but that looks okay. And I popped some dimensionals just on either side. So I'm going to use a couple of mini dimensionals, just one on each end, one there and one there. And just added that underneath the ribbon near the bottom. I do think I prefer it just with a little bit of colour around it, and that's slightly narrower than that, and I think I would probably do that the next time, just trim that a little bit more, but they're okay. I'm quite happy with that, but I do like a little bit of sponging of the colour around the outside. So that's it for today's project. I hope you like those. If you like the project, do give it a thumbs up and let me know what you think. I'd love to see if you make your own one as well, and what you decide to use and what your colour combination is. Don't forget to like and subscribe as well, and press the little bell icon beside the subscribe button so that you get a notification when I post my next video. But it's nice to see you once again, and until next time, take care. Bye bye.